Transition is hard, no doubt, but by no means is it insurmountable. We've discussed agronomic transition strategies, but how should a farmer manage their finances through transition? It's going to be a concern for everyone involved in the transition process, from your family to your neighbor to that banker you work with. In this lesson, we're going to take a closer look at the economics of transition, and we're going to start by talking with someone who thinks about this stuff every single day, an ag lender who works with organic farmers.
So I'm Paul Dietmann. I'm with Compeer Financial, which is part of the Farm Credit System. In my role here, I co-lead our Emerging Markets Loan Program, which is a loan program for farmers who market products directly to consumers or who are engaged in something value-added, whether it's value-added production, processing, or marketing. So I work with a lot of organic growers.
And when, in your experience, would be the best time for a farmer to make that transition?
Yeah, we work with a fair number of farmers who are conventional that are thinking about transitioning to organic. And it seems like a lot of farmers think more about transitioning to organic when conventional crop prices are low. And right now, with conventional crop prices high, they're not really thinking about it too much. Actually, now would be a great time to make the transition because we always know that high prices are never last. They always go the other direction. We always manage to produce to the market and bring the crop prices down. And if you're in an area outside of where we are, where we've got livestock, we've got the need for hay, which is a great way to transition to organic crop production. If you're in a state where there's no market for hay, and you have to transition with transitional grains, corn, soybeans, it's a lot better to make that transition when corn is at $5.50 a bushel than it is at $3.50 a bushel.
And what do you think the best strategy for that transition would be?
Well, here in the upper Midwest, where we still have dairy and livestock, if we can use hay in those transition years, that's ideal, because then you've got a crop that's very saleable, that can take out those cash flow troughs. It can get you through the transition years. If we don't have that luxury of having dairy and livestock that have a need for that hay crop, then it's just being prepared for having production expenses, not having quite the level of income that you were expecting. It may require having a bit more cash saved up on the front end. It may be having some off-farm income. It may be having an operating loan set up to carry you through those tougher years.
And tell me a little bit more about that financing. When is that going to be the most relevant for a farmer?
It's usually towards the end of that transition that they start to run into a cash flow crunch. You would think that it would start in year one or year two. Excuse me. Usually it's just on the cusp of becoming certified organic, just before they have crops that are able to be sold as certified organic crops. That's usually when they hit the lowest point. They've kind of used up all their cash, and they've kind of maxed out their credit, and it's that last couple of months that's hard to get through, and then things sort of work out.
Could you tell me a little bit more about that financing through transition?
It's a good idea if you're projecting your cash flow and it looks like it's going to be tight, even if you can handle it. Maybe you've got enough savings, you've got income coming in from your conventional crops because you're transitioning slowly. You're not transitioning 100% of your acres to organic in 1 year. So you may be able to make it through that transition period. It's not a bad idea to take an operating loan, though, or at least have an operating line of credit available to you so that if you do get into a tough spot, or you get into that third year of transition and you just need a little something to get you over the hump, but you've done your cash flows, that money is going to come in, you're going to be able to pay that operating loan back down. It's not a bad idea to at least have that there as a safety net. The other part of that is if you need specialized equipment, how do you figure out, should I take a loan to buy a new cultivator or to buy a flame weeder or whatever? I've tried to teach farmers how to do internal rate of return calculations. It's a way of looking at a capital investment and whether or not it makes sense to make that investment. Is it going to give you enough of an internal rate of return to justify taking on debt? And that it's a really powerful tool, and it helps you figure out, if I've got a limited amount of cash and I need to hold some of it because I'm getting through this transition process, but I know I'm going to need some pieces of equipment too, I can't do it all. I can't make all these investments without taking on some debt. Where's the smartest place to take on that debt? And being able to make that calculation gives a farmer a lot more confidence, in taking on debt. I can make a loan in a lot of situations, whether it makes sense to make that loan or not, and so the question really that needs to be asked is, should I get a loan? Not can I get a loan, should I get a loan? You can get a loan if you've got off-farm income, you're subsidizing your farm operation, you can get a loan, but should you? Is it a good investment for the business?
And can you make money in organics?
I see a lot of farmers going through the transition, and I work with a number of growers who have already made the transition. Organic crop production is very profitable. It really is. It's, even though yields might be a little bit less, not always, but during the transition for sure. I mean, especially, those couple of years that you're transitioning, you're learning organic crop production systems. It's a lot more of an art than a science. You can't spray things. You have to get used to the timing of cultivation or rotary hoeing or all those sorts of things that they're all skills that we've lost along the way, and organic farmers have had to learn again, and they're teaching other organic farmers too. So that part, you're going to lose some production in the transition, but once you make it, there's definitely money to be made in organics.
So let's sum up some of what we've heard, and I'll add in a few things that I've learned through my own transition experience, as well as what I've observed during my countless experiences working with organic farmers. While profit potential through the transition period will depend on lots of factors, working to not lose money, aka cut your costs, is potentially a more effective approach than trying to make a bunch of money during transition. Due to the learning curve and the potential for challenges, setting transition up to minimize weeds, minimize labor, and minimize purchased inputs will keep both costs and risks low. Fighting weeds during transition in order to raise a bunch of transitional corn or beans will take extra labor and extra machinery hours. As we talked about in the last lesson, there are situations where a farmer will have to maintain some sort of cash flow through the transition period. If money is tight and a farmer would need to unsustainably push the land to maximize production through the transition period, they're likely going to be throwing out that baby with the bathwater and won't be in a good place once they hit that organic certified status. If they have to satisfy a lender with immediate cash flow or need to raise heavy feeding grains during transition, it's best to minimize the amount of acres transitioned any one year and try to dial down those dollars spent per acre. Now remember, transition can be an opportunity to learn about organic farming techniques while not risking the whole farm. Once you're organic, the scrimmage is over and the reward is so much higher. You'll want to have your systems dialed in to take advantage of that. Running a few row crop acres to learn systems is one thing, but too many acres in high input, high labor crops could be too much risk and just not enough reward. Dig deeper into the lesson notes for more tips on managing farm finances during the transition process. So as a wrap up, remember, the payday in organics comes after transition. I want you to put on that let's minimize loss hat instead of the let's maximize gross revenue hat when prepping for transition. It's a lot easier to stomach the losses on a 20-acre field than a 200-acre field. So build your transition to align with your risk tolerance. And remember, successful transition is definitely possible. Thousands of farmers have already done it, and frankly, thousands more will.